Welcome to MilSpouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to encouraging military spouses. I'm your host, Jen McDonald, and I was a military spouse for 30 years until my husband retired. We lived all around the world, raised 4 kids, and dealt with all the challenges and adventures of military life, just like you. Over the years, I came to believe that we military spouses are only stronger together. So whether you're a new or more seasoned spouse, whatever life is throwing your way, let's talk about it. So, hey, everybody. Some of the most listened to episodes for this podcast are about self-care and fitness. And so I am delighted today to bring you my guest, Grace Barnick-Damazo. We are going to be talking all about how to PCS proof your fitness routine. Grace is the head coach and owner of FitPath Coaching, LLC. She has spent years learning from the best in the fitness industry so that she can get you the results that you deserve. Grace is a Navy spouse, and she understands the unique challenges that military life plays in reaching your health and fitness goals. It's her mission to provide solutions that work for active duty women and military spouses, including her most recent fitness program, PCS Proof Fitness. Grace was voted the 2018 Personal Trainer of the Year by her peers, and she's committed to providing the highest level, science-backed, proven programs to women in military life in a supportive, approachable, and affordable way. You can learn more about Grace and her programs at fitpathcoaching.com and Instagram, Facebook, and the Spousely store. And we will put all the links for those in the show notes. And hey, make sure and hang out with us through the end of this episode because Grace is generously offering a freebie for listeners. So welcome, Grace, to the show. I'm so glad to be talking to you today.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for having me. That was a really lovely intro. Thank you.
Well, I was thinking that's so cool being voted trainer of the year. Woo, that's really something.
Yeah, I think that's I was honored because, it's the fitness industry is very competitive. So It's just nice to be recognized for being a good trainer and then also a good teammate.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, can you start off by telling us a little bit of background about you and your family and as a military spouse?
Absolutely. So I'm just a normal girl who happened to marry a boy in the military, and we've had an adventure ever since. So I'm originally from California, and I met my now husband when he was also stationed in California. We met almost 10 years ago, which is crazy. And ever since, we've moved a couple times with the military, and as we've moved, we've gathered pets along the way. So now we're a family of 5.
Oh wow!
With my husband and our dog Dottie and our 2 cats that we got here in Japan. So currently we're stationed in Japan. We're in the process of moving from northern Japan to southern Japan. So we're really lucky and fortunate to be able to spend so much time abroad, and Japan's amazing.
Yeah.
And in my spare time, when I have it, I like to play sports. So if you're ever in Japan and you happen to be traveling around, you're probably going to see me traveling around playing softball. That's what I love to do in my spare time.
That's wonderful. Well, and she is something because I didn't realize she was mid PCS move, staying in a hotel as we're doing this interview, and I rescheduled on her, and she didn't even tell me like, hey, that's not convenient. So you can see you have your stuff together. You are awesome that you can just like be so flexible and switch up like that.
I think in the middle of a PCS, have your stuff together is a very flexible term. So you caught me on a good week.
Well, you seem organized to me. So, well, you mentioned playing softball. So what has fitness meant to your personal life, and how did that parlay into becoming a personal trainer? We'd love to hear that story.
Absolutely. So I'd love to say that I have this amazing story where I've always wanted to be a trainer since I was a little girl, and my dreams always came true. I wish that I could tell you that story, but I mean, that would really be a lie. I didn't really get into fitness until my late 20s, and it kind of came through a lot of challenge and life experience that led me toward fitness. And then eventually that turned into a passion that I wanted to share with other women who I know were just like me and had been in similar situations as me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to make a very long story as concise as possible.
Oh, you're fine.
Before meeting my husband, I was in a completely different industry. I was working in the wine industry, and I was living in Napa Valley, and what a wonderful life it was.
Oh, wow.
But I was in a relationship with someone who was just not right for me. It was a very codependent relationship. Unfortunately, he had some substance abuse issues. And I ended up giving basically my whole self, my identity, all of those things to that relationship, and was not taking care of myself. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't sleeping well. I was drinking more than I probably should have been. And I wasn't spending any time on my physical health. And that affected both my mental health, but it also affected my career. I wasn't performing in my career, and it always felt like I was struggling. And I just wasn't happy. And I had a coworker who invited me to join a boot camp at 6 a.m. in the freezing cold outside on a tennis court in Napa in January.
Wow.
And I kept putting her off. And eventually I said, yeah, I'll go with you. I'll just try it out. And after the first class, I was like, okay, like that was really hard. My whole body was sore, but I went back and ended up, I think, signing my life away to a 1-year contract at that boot camp. And so I had to go, and I showed up 3 days a week in the morning in the freezing cold. And what I was finding is after the first couple of weeks, that overwhelming soreness started to get less, and I started to feel some definition in my muscles, and I started to feel better. I started to have better posture, and that started to translate little by little into my personal life and my professional life. And not that this is the moral of the story is not get out of that relationship. The moral of the story is take care of yourself. But it ended up leading me to walk away from a relationship that just wasn't serving me, and it was holding me back. So that kind of jump started a career toward fitness. I found that was really empowering for me. And I kind of rolled that over into, I moved to a new city, the city that I met my husband in. And I started working out at a gym there. And the coach there had always kind of asked me, like, have you ever thought about becoming a personal trainer? I could use some help. And I finally said yes. And he offered to pay for my certification. And this is kind of a moral of the story, is like invest in yourself. So I told him, like, I would absolutely do that, but I want to pay for half of it, because I feel like when you put a little bit of skin in the game, you're more likely to follow through. So he paid for half, I paid for half. And because I put my money down and he was counting on me, I got it done. And that was kind of the start of this path. And then, like, a little side story is, as military spouses, we know that we have to have a career. If we choose to have that path, a career path, we have to have a career that's flexible. And so part of my decision to become a trainer is because I knew that was something that I would be able to carry with me. Whereas, like, the wine industry, I can't take that with me. So, so that was, like, that's just the reality of being a military spouse, is that sometimes our career paths are a little bit dictated by what we can continue to do, no matter where military life sends us.
Oh, definitely.
So I'm just really lucky that I get to do something that allows me to take it with me wherever I go, and then also allows me to serve other women and help empower them along the way.
And something that you love. And I just think, how cool is that the decision you made just to start taking care of yourself led to so many things, like leaving a bad relationship, a whole new career. You moved. Like, would you have moved because, if you hadn't done those things?
No. Yeah. I met my spouse because of all of that. Yeah.
Wow.
So
That's
the universe
so cool.
was taking care of me.
That is really, really cool. Well, and I think it's so easy for us to put ourselves in the back burner, whether a military spouse or not. I mean, we're post-military life now, and it does become the thing that's like, okay, I have all this other stuff to do, so I'm going to put that aside. And that is such a temptation. So for a military spouse who is just exhausted by, like maybe a deployment or a PCS move or just the regular challenges of military life, personal fitness, how do we make that a priority? And what would you say to that military spouse? It's like, whatever, I have a long enough to-do list. Do not give me one more thing to do.
Absolutely. And I'm going to give like just a little dose of reality, because sometimes I need that as well. So for your listeners and for any military spouse, my encouragement is to really stop looking at other people who are not in the military, and especially on social media, and comparing yourself, because they just don't get it. Like, the reality is we have unique challenges and unique barriers to starting health and fitness routines that someone who like just doesn't know how hard it can be to do a perfect meal prep in the middle of a PCS, or, like doesn't understand that they can't make it to that one group fitness class at that specific time because their spouse just left on deployment this week. It's hard to compare our experience, to other people who they just don't live that life. So that's what I would say is just free yourself from comparison. And I'm not saying that as a discouragement to get started. I just want the listeners to remind themselves that we're unique and our life isn't normal, and that's okay. Neither are we.
Yeah.
We are already like trained as military spouses to be resilient and be adaptable and flexible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I would like us all to kind of feed into, is that we are already built to be flexible and adaptable and resilient. And that's the type of health and fitness journey that we should be on, as one that allows us to be resilient and flexible and adaptable, because that's our life.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I would say, is to stop comparing yourself and just kind of like lean into our innate resiliency and adaptability, because that's what we've been training for in military life already.
And you're worth making yourself a priority for sure.
Absolutely. Like if we don't take care of ourselves, how are we supposed to take care of our families? And they're counting on us a lot of the time because if our spouse is gone, we're it.
And I think that's so true, even just giving yourself rest or a break, because I remember, especially when I had 4 kids under the age of 7 and my husband would be gone, I was like, no one's telling me take a break. I have to tell myself to take a break. I have to tell myself, put stuff aside and go for a walk or whatever it is I was going to do. Like if you don't do it, who's going to? Because that's just the reality of military life. It's unfortunate, but it's the truth. You have to just do it yourself. Yeah.
I was reading an article the other day on this term of toxic productivity. When I was reading through it, I was like, yeah, that's me. Has a hard time sitting down and taking a break.
Yes.
Always looks at any opportunity where you're not doing something, like, what can I use this time for? And I was talking to a girlfriend about it, and she's like, yeah, that's me too.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
Yeah. I think 1, we're trained for it. I think 2, COVID probably made us like that because we were at home and we didn't have that separation of work life, home life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we all kind of started to fall into that. So taking a moment to say, like, it's okay for me to go outside and go for a walk.
Yeah.
That's okay. If the dishes have to wait for 5 minutes,
they'll still be there.
They're still going to be there. But I will feel better if I go for a walk.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I love this idea of PCS proofing your fitness. So can you tell us what that means and how do we go about that? Because for instance, you're in the middle of a big move. So how do you work fitness into that?
Kind of going along with adaptability. I think that, PCS Proof Fitness is really all about nurturing that flexibility and strength within us, but we can continue to be that stable rock for our families. That's really important. And we can do that by making it really easy to prioritize ourselves, have the flexibility to stay resilient through every season of military life, whether that's PCSing, deployment, TDYs, or whatever it is. Holidays with your family gone. Quick side story. We PCSed here originally to Japan in the middle of COVID. That was a whole journey, like our first overseas PCS right in the middle of a pandemic. And there were some unique challenges that came along with that. For me, being someone who does use exercise as a therapy, that was really tough for me. And I'm a trainer. I've been doing this for a really long time. And if I was struggling, I knew that most people probably are struggling right along with me. And I was lucky. I had a few little pieces of equipment that we could take with us. I was able to kind of make a program that I could kind of adapt no matter where we were at in the process. But that was kind of like the etymology of where this idea of a PCS proof fitness program came from, is like something that we'll adapt from we're on the road to we're in a ROM situation where we're stuck in like a kind of like a isolation or quarantine for 2 weeks and we can't go out of our hotel room, to moving into a house with no equipment, to, like all those things that needed to be able to adapt to that. So that was 3 years ago. And it's been about 3 years of kind of putting together this program. And the idea is that it's able to adapt to any season of military life.
I love that.
So we're all about keeping it really simple, easy to follow workouts. We want it to be adaptable no matter if you're in the gym, if you're at home, or if you're in a hotel room. You can seamlessly move. You don't have to change your program. throughout that. And it was really important to me that I kept it affordable, because that's another stressor in the middle of any season of military life, but especially during the PCS, there's unexpected costs everywhere. So it was really important to me that we kept this very affordable as well.
That's so cool.
that you can get the results that you deserve and continue to take care of yourself and not have to put yourself on the back burner.
Well, and I travel a lot. I travel more than I did while we were active duty. So I'm thinking, maybe I need to take a look at that. Is it something you could do in a hotel room? Yeah.
Yes. Tried, tested, and proven. Yes.
So that is your newest fitness program. It's called PCS Proof.
Yes. Yeah. That's the flagship program right now, PCS Proof Fitness.
That's awesome. I love that term. I think it's going to reach the right audience with that, because I know military spouses are looking for ways to work fitness into their routine. And it's so important, especially like for me, I love to walk. So we had moved to North Dakota from Guam, and that first winter, because I was like, well, I want to get outside every day. I want to walk. And we didn't have a treadmill or anything at that point. And I was like, I'm going to keep walking. I will keep walking. And then it's like 20 below zero, icy. And I'm like putting those clamps on my shoes. I'm like, I think I'm not going to be walking this winter. I have to figure out something else,
Yeah, we need to have a plan B and oftentimes a plan C.
Yeah. Yeah. Versus just sitting inside and just eating and wrapping myself in a blanket like I wanted to.
Well, you can do that too on some days. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I would love to hear, Grace, some of the stories of military spouses that have gone through your program. You don't have to tell us names, or military spouses or military members who have come through your program and what their experience was.
There are so many, it's hard to kind of choose. So I think some of my favorite stories or like themes are about when women like first come to me when we first start talking, and they feel really defeated because they feel like they tried everything and nothing's worked for them, or they feel like it worked for a little bit, but they just couldn't stick to it. If they tried, I'm just going to call it out. Like there's tons of examples, so forgive me for calling one of these out, but like P90X, they feel like they were doing really good with it, but it was so intense that they couldn't stick to it. And then they felt discouraged, like, oh, why can't I do this? And then, so it was just like kind of a roller coaster of emotion. It was feeling really good and then feeling really down on themselves that they couldn't stick with it, or a fad diet or a cleanse that worked for them a short term, but it just wasn't sustainable long term.
Or like that 75 hard. Do I want to hear what you have to think about?
Yes. I think anything that gets people moving is a great thing.
But there's no rest days. And I think that's insane.
Yeah, there's no rest days. And how does that, like for already overstressed military spouse, like how's that going to be good for your hormones and I think anything that gets people moving initially is an awesome thing. I don't want to discourage people from trying those things, but I also encourage you to find what's going to work for your life and something that you can sustain long term. Yeah, because that's going to be more beneficial for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like, if it's not something I can keep doing, I'm not even going to start it. I'm too old for that. I've been there, done that. I've done through, all of that stuff. And I just say, if it's not something that I'm willing to do for the rest of my life, I will not start it. So when I see fad diets or whatever, and they're like, I lost this much weight in this much time, I was like, okay, well, let's talk in a year, because sure, you can do that for 3 months, but can you keep doing it? Is it something that you can live with?
Mm-hmm. And they're finding now, doing research, they're finding that a lot of the times the damage that comes from those short-term fad diets and cleanses, the long-term metabolic damage, it's going to take years to correct it. If at all. So yeah, like I do encourage people to kind of look at like, this is an investment. It's not a, quick fix.
Right.
But you're going to be better off in the long run. Like my goal is to keep you safe for now and in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think my favorite stories are those that they really give themselves the chance, the time that's required to let their bodies give them the results that they were wanting. Like I need to invest a little bit longer time. I need to stop expecting the quick results. And what they find is that they're really proud of themselves. They don't have to kill themselves. They can work balance into their lives where they're still able to go out and have dinner with their friends. They don't have to like avoid social interaction because they're afraid that there's not going to be the food that's on their food list. And those are some of the ones that I really like. Similarly, I love working with women who come to me and they say that they've never felt comfortable walking into a gym because there's all these if it's
The
women
bros.
specifically, the bros, exactly, that feels really intimidating. And I'm sure that's the same for men too. I don't want to discount that. Like there are a lot of men who are afraid to go into the weight room because there's all these guys who feel like they're already way ahead of them. And like, how am I supposed to catch up?
Oh, especially on base, because that's even like another level.
Yes, absolutely. And for most military spouses, that's the base that we have, or the gym that we have access to is the one on base. So I love when I can see or hear from some of my, coaching members, and they come to me and they say, I walked up to the squat rack and I felt confident. I know exactly what I was doing. I didn't need anyone's help. And just knowing that they have a skill that they can take with them for the rest of their lives. And hopefully in a perfect world, pass it on to their kids. Especially, I think it's important for women to feel comfortable using resistance training. So maybe important. Teaching their daughter, because no one taught me, I learned in my late 20s. So yeah, the goal is that we are building a legacy of health.
Yes.
Not just for one person, that it kind of like spreads out.
Yeah. Well, and I love that about your generation, because I feel like my generation, it was all about be thin, be thin, be thin. And so my daughters are in their 20s, and my daughters-in-law, and it's more be strong. They're not so hung up on the weight on the scale if they gain a couple pounds, because they're getting stronger. I have one daughter that's a competitive dancer. And so she's always doing strength training, and she'll gain a little weight. She's like, I don't care. My legs are stronger. And I just go, I love that the mindset is so different. And I hope that does carry on, because I think letting go of that, what the number on the scale is or what size you're in, and focusing more on what you can do and flexibility and strength is so amazing.
And I hope that is true, because I agree with you. I think it's amazing that change has happened. But I still talk to 90% of women who, when they first come to me, it's about the number on the scale. So gotcha. I think we still need to work on the education of, like there's still some work to be done, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That there is conversation, because I think it is shifting, but I still see the legacy of the be thin number on the scale.
I think you're conscious of it when you have daughters, because I feel like, did I put issues on them? And so to see them kind of separate from that, it's really, I really love it. I just think it's just a conversation, like you said, needs to keep happening, need to keep being open about it, because, that's just a process that's just going to keep happening as each new generation comes up.
Yeah. And let's keep the conversation. I think it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's moving in the right direction. Yeah. And we still have some work to do.
Well, I didn't ask you this in your notes, so feel free to, if you don't want to answer this. I'm curious, if somebody joins your plan, what would be an example of like what a day would look like? What sort of exercises are they doing? Or do they have to have like a treadmill or something? Or is it all just things that they have around the house?
That's a great question. Both, actually. So within the program, I've given alternate exercises. So the idea is that if you're working out at home and you have minimal equipment, maybe you have your couch or counter, you have the floor, obviously, you have the wall, and maybe you have some cans in your pantry, that you'd be able to create or follow along the exact same workout, just modifying or getting creative with what you have in the house. And the same day or the next day, you could walk into the gym and you'd be able to select exercises that have traditional gym equipment. I also have put together kind of like a really short list of what worked best for me and what has worked best for the women I work with. And I consider it, or call it, my PCS Proof equipment list.
Yeah.
So these are all pieces of equipment that you could easily take with you from one place to another. And they are small and they're affordable and they could fit in your luggage. There's that. If you wanted to have like the small little mini gym that you could take with you, that's your PCS Proof equipment gym.
Which you can tuck into your luggage.
And those will all kind of like, you can piecemeal into the program if you want to. So hope that answers your question.
Oh, yeah.
You can do it at home with body weight or what you have available. And then you could go into the gym the next day and do the same, essentially the same workout. You wouldn't feel like you're getting gypped if you're working out at home. It's the same workout. They're just slightly shifted based on the day.
So people can just start with where they are. And if they want to add things, they can. And if they don't have it, then you can still work with them, it sounds like.
Yeah. And you don't have to wait. Everyone's like waiting for the perfect time. I'm going to wait till I get to my next duty station. I'm settled. And before you know it, that's 3 months later. And, it's harder to start when you feel like you've been telling yourself to start for a long time. Like, take that first step. It takes down the barrier. Like, if you think of like this big thing, it feels really daunting and scary. Just taking one step brings that barrier down a little bit. So just start where you're at and then, build up as you're ready. That's that kind of like flexibility piece.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, in talking about military spouses and moving and all the challenges that go along, I would love for you, Grace, to give us a few tips for some ways that military spouses, how do they make their own health and self-care a priority? What are some tangible things they can do today?
I think this kind of goes back to earlier in our conversation about being that stable rock for our families. I think oftentimes we tend to think that self-care is selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And that we have to take care of everyone else. That comes first. And when I have time, I'll do something for myself. But as military spouses, we are the stable piece for our families.
Yeah.
And if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to take care of the people that were counting on us. And similarly, what example are we going to set for them? So I think like self-care isn't actually selfish. It's essential. Mm-hmm. We need to take care of ourselves so that we have the energy to be able to continue to be the rock for our family, but also to set that example that it's okay to take care of ourselves for the people who are counting on us. I would also encourage, and this is a fitness tip, is to be imperfect and allow your journey to be imperfect. Because I think, especially with social media, you see everyone like, the 75 hard is a great example. It's like, you can't miss a day and
right.
You check off you
have to start over
every single day. Yeah. And oh my gosh, how frustrating is that when you have to start over and discouraging, and eventually you're probably going to give up.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing that we want to encourage people to do, is to give up and have to start again. And
I've known 2 people that got injured doing 75 hard. That's why I have a little beef with it. Like, personally know 2 people that started over and it's just too much. So that's just Jen's little diatribe about 75 hard. It's not necessarily great for your joints and your body,
And does your body know that you missed a day?
Right.
No, it knows that you did however many days up to that point of work.
It didn't start over.
So yeah. So I think we need to kind of embrace and kind of shy away from the trend that's out there right now, is like, you have to check off every box and it has to be perfect, or you have to give up or start over. And instead, because that's not military life anyway. Nothing in military life is perfect.
Exactly.
Nothing goes to plan. As much as we like to think it's going to happen that way, nothing goes to plan. So why do we treat our health and fitness routines like that?
Yeah. All or nothing.
Instead, I would, that is a recipe for discouragement, and it's going to hold you back from your ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage people to look at progress over time. And when my coaching clients shift from that perfection mindset to this, looking at, you can have one bad week and you're like, oh, I missed 2 workouts out of my 3 workouts this week. I failed. And you forget about the fact that you've been doing this now for 3 months. And in the last 3 months, you've done, 30 workouts. Amazing.
Yeah.
So we need to start looking at the bigger picture. One of my favorite authors, Hal Elrod, he wrote The Miracle Morning. Highly recommend to anyone out there. And he would always say we overestimate what we can do in a day, and we underestimate what we can do in a year.
Oh.
So stopping putting so much pressure onto I have to get everything done today. And instead of looking at what can I accomplish over the course of a year?
Yeah.
So yeah, just embrace the imperfection. I couldn't get my workout in today. That's okay. Have tomorrow. I'm going to get it done tomorrow.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah. And then actually I have a couple more. So keeping it simple is really important. Start small and build momentum. We don't need to go from 0 to 100. And sometimes people think that especially New Year's resolutions is a great example, is everyone wants to start on January 1st and they want to eat perfectly and they want to work out perfectly. And they want to, sleep perfectly, and they want to read every day, and they want to, all these things.
And then come February.
And sometimes, it's too much. And scientific studies have shown that it doesn't work that way, that we tend to be more successful when we start with one thing and we build that up to a habit, and then we add on another piece to it. Or I think about a pyramid, we're building layers to a pyramid. So when the base is completely finished, then we can build another base. And over time, the pyramid gets higher and higher. So don't overcomplicate things. And this can apply to exercise, but can also apply to things as simple as sleep, hydration, stress management, taking your vitamins. Like start somewhere, just start small, build that up, and then add the next layer when you're ready. And when in doubt, go for a walk. If you can't go to the gym, or you don't feel like you have the bandwidth to get a full workout in, go for a walk. So Jen, you already kind of touched on that. Like
get a dog, for a walk. Get a dog that needs to be walked and you will never miss a walk.
Absolutely. I can attest to that for sure. And if you don't have a yard, it helps even more, but it helps your mood. It helps your stress management. Believe it or not, it can help your metabolism, help heal your metabolism. And it requires very little skill and basically no equipment besides your shoes and maybe a dog. So it also helps you really, for me, I have noticed how much walking this PCS has benefited my mindset to be able to, like, your house feels like it's been ripped apart.
Yeah.
And you can't even think straight. To be able to walk outside and even for 20, 30 minutes, it helps you like refocus. And I get some of my best ideas when I'm out on a walk, and I will kind of like voice note myself in my phone.
Yes.
But yeah, just to be able to step away from the chaos and refocus, going for a walk is extremely beneficial for that. So when in doubt, go for a walk. If you did nothing else but go for a walk for now, you're going to be way better off in a month.
Right.
And then my last tip for people is like, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are people out there who have been in your shoes, have been exactly where you're at, and you don't have to figure out the best path on your own. And I think sometimes we think because we're military spouses, we're on our own. Like our spouse just left us, we have to figure this out on our own. And that's just not the truth. Like you wrote a book about it. You're not alone. And there's someone who knows the fastest, straightest path to get you where you want to go. And you just have to ask for help and be willing to receive a little bit of assistance.
Yeah. And you have to give yourself permission to do that sometimes because it feels like a weakness, but you're so right.
Yeah, it does. And I'm kind of like that too. I'm super independent.
Yeah.
But I've known that running a business would be a really good example because you might have some entrepreneurs out there who are listening. Is like, like I was really stubborn at the beginning of my business and wanted to figure it out on my own. And that's just kind of my nature. But when I hired a coach, like a business coach, and they would just be like, well, you just do this and you just do this. And you just
there's a simple solution for that.
Yeah. And it just saves you so much time and stress and gets you where you want to go faster.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Yeah. That's so good. Well, I love your tips and all that you're doing. I wonder, do you work with middle-aged ladies, Grace?
Yes. And also, that's kind of like a funny story. When I was in San Diego, I worked at a gym that was mostly people who were like 65 plus. So like I had a client who was 83.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. And I loved working with all age groups because I think there's so much to learn. And my mom was doing my program for a while, especially during COVID. And she's in her early 70s. And she would always tell me, like, I've never worked out before. I never thought that I was someone that could work out. And then to see her like deadlifting or
that's so special. That's so cool.
It was really special.
So if you're old like me, you can still work with Grace.
No, I think any age, and especially it gets more important as we get past the 30 year marks. Anything after the 30-year mark becomes extremely important for us for our longevity.
Well, it just is. It's so insidious because you realize, suddenly I can't do this thing. So you have to be really mindful. I have my son-in-law's sister is a PT, and she says, if you rest, you rest. She's just like, you got to keep moving. And because she works with a lot of older folks, and they didn't just suddenly stop moving. It's just, it happens over time. I think, like you said, just getting out for a walk, get that fresh air, get that movement, that's some place to start.
Absolutely. And it's never too late. It's never too late.
Well, tell us about your offer for listeners, Grace, that you're so generously giving us.
So I want to kind of touch on, I told you, make it easy. So I want to make it really easy for people. I know that starting something new, especially in fitness and health, it can feel really scary and daunting. So I just want to make it really easy and remove all of the risk to taking that very first step. So I'd love for your listeners, if you would like to take that first step and try out PCS Proof Fitness, I want to take care of your first month for you. So I think, Jen, you're going to put the link so they can follow that link to the website, click on the PCS Proof Fitness button, and use the code when you check out of MSM free. So that's No Spouse Matters, MSM FREE is the promo code for that. And I'll take care of your first month.
That's so wonderful. And listeners, if you're driving or you're exercising right now, that will be in the show notes. So you don't have to try to remember that. And her site is fitpathcoaching.com. And again, we'll put all of this information in the show notes so that you can connect with Grace. So is there anything else you wanted to add before we close out, Grace? It was so great talking to you.
No, just thank you so much, Jen, for the opportunity. It was a nice conversation. So thank you. As always, you have great conversations with all of your guests. So I'm looking forward to listening to more of your episodes.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for joining me today. I think you gave so many actionable tips and ways that we can incorporate fitness and be more mindful about our self-care. It's so important for military spouses. This is a message that needs to be heard this fall. I'm doing a lot of health messages, mental, spiritual, physical health. So this just fits right in.
Wonderful. Perfect timing.
Well, thank you again, Grace.
Thank you, Jen.
And listeners, remember, connect with Grace at fitpathcoaching.com on her social media as well. And use the promo code MSMFree for the first month of PCS Proof Fitness completely free. It's such a generous offer. So I hope you guys will take advantage of it. And I'm so glad you joined me today, wherever you are in the world. And remember, military spouse, you are brave, you are strong, and you have got this. And I will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the MilSpouse Matters podcast. You can connect with me at jen-mcdonald.com or on social media as @MilSpouseMatters. You can find even more military life support with my books, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse, and MilSpouse Matters, Sharing Strength Through Our Stories, as well as my other podcast, The Christian MilSpouse. Love the show? Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening, and then share it with someone else who could use it too. Until next time, have a great week.